Hello and welcome back. If you've ever wondered what women truly desire, not what they say they want, but what quietly shapes their imagination, today's video will speak to a more profound truth rarely discussed. We're about to explore something hidden beneath the surface of modern relationships. It's not about flowers, compliments, or grand gestures. This is about a core emotional experience. A fantasy that lives quietly in many women's inner world, yet is rarely spoken aloud. Not to friends, not in therapy, sometimes not even to themselves. This isn't about control, and it's not about playing games. It's about emotional safety, trust, and a masculine presence that allows a woman to let go entirely, freely, and without fear. This video unpacks what this fantasy truly is, why so many women bury it, and how a man can awaken it, not with words or performance, but through calm, grounded energy. If you've ever sensed that there's more going on beneath a woman's surface than she's willing to show, you're right. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why. So stay with us until the final moments. We're not just talking about attraction, we're talking about emotional resonance that leaves a lasting imprint. Let's begin. There is a part of her that she rarely speaks of, even to herself. It lives beneath the conversations and behind the smiles tucked away in quiet moments of imagination. It's not a fantasy she proudly claims or casually confesses. It's older than language and deeper than logic. And most men never touch it because they never dare to lead her there. Too many men play safe. They hesitate. They ask for permission at every glance and speak as if they're trying to pass a test. But what she craves can't be summoned through politeness. It responds to something more ancient: certainty. Not force, not arrogance, but the unwavering presence of a man who knows who he is and does not flinch. She doesn't want chaos or control. She wants to feel a man's strength through his stillness, decisions, and quiet confidence that says, "I've got this." It's not about domination, but about surrender, the emotional kind. A woman only surrenders to a man who makes her feel safe, not with words, but with grounded certainty. When she thinks that, she lets go of the world momentarily. She exhales. She softens. She follows. This pull isn't about appearances. It isn't about status or lines rehearsed in dating books. It's about energy. The kind of energy that doesn't ask, it claims. Not her, but the moment. At that moment, she feels more seen than she has in months, because the man in front of her is not reacting to her, he's responding to life. Few men embody this, not because they can't, but because they've been taught to suppress the very instinct that women are wired to respond to. They've been told to be gentle at the cost of being real, to be agreeable at the expense of being present. But the man who awakens something in her doesn't play a role. He brings the storm and the calm. He doesn't wait to be chosen, he chooses. When he does, she feels it not just in her mind, but in her body. It's not a decision, it's a reaction. A primal yes, not out of submission, but out of trust. In a world of noise and hesitation, the one who stands firm becomes the one she remembers. So what she's looking for is not a perfect man, but a clear one. At the core of her desire is not control, but certainty, not domination, but direction. She's not looking for someone to overpower her, but someone who moves through life with clarity and doesn't hesitate or over-explain, but simply knows. The fantasy isn't about being told what to do. It's about feeling deeply that the man beside her understands what he's doing without her permission to lead. She spends her days making decisions and solving problems, carrying the weight of expectations in her work, family, and social world. She's in charge so often that the idea of not having to be in charge becomes a quiet craving. She longs for the freedom to let go, not because she's weak, but because she's tired of always having to be strong. And she can only surrender when the man's energy whispers, not with words, but with presence, "You're safe with me." This is not about being physically possessed. It's about feeling energetically held by someone grounded and unshakable. Someone who doesn't flinch when things get heavy. Someone who doesn't seek validation but brings stability simply by being who he is. It's in the little things. He walks into a room that is already certain of his place. The way he reaches for her hand is with intention, not hesitation. The way he listens, not waiting to reply but hearing what she doesn't say. She doesn't want to teach him how to love her. She wants to feel that he's already been paying attention. A woman only gives up control when she can trust the one receiving it. And that trust is built not through charm or empty promises, but through consistent presence, through the subtle but powerful message in his actions that says, "I've got this. I've got you." This is what many men miss. They think being strong means being loud, being dominant, and being in command. But true strength, the kind that draws a woman in without effort, is quite solid and sure. It doesn't force. It doesn't beg. It just is. She doesn't want to lead in intimacy. She wants to rest in it, to feel held without having to hold everything together, to melt without fear, to follow not because she's lost, but because she finally feels found. And that touched the deepest part of her, the part she would never easily confess. She won't tell you what she wants, not because it isn't there, but because saying it out loud would feel like breaking a rule she's carried since girlhood. She's been told to be strong, independent, and untouchable, to never need too much, to control her life, her image, and her heart. And anything that suggests dependence or longing feels like betrayal. Not of you, but of the identity she's been taught to wear like armor. There is a softer desire beneath all of it. A hidden hunger is not for someone to take over her life, but to hold it with care. Not to control her, but to give her space to rest. This is the part she's learned to cover with ambition, sarcasm, and knowing glances. She jokes about being too much for most men, but deep down she wonders if there's someone who won't flinch when she finally lets go of the performance. She'll never say it directly because vulnerability has cost her before. To admit the fantasy of being fully seen and entirely safe feels risky. It's not weakness she's afraid of showing, it's the fear that no one will know what to do with it if she does. So she keeps it hidden, smiles through it, outworks it, outtalks it, until someone who doesn't try to fix, analyze, or name it comes along. Just listen, just stays. There is a reason some women only soften in silence. The world is too loud with expectations and judgment. She's never been asked what she needs without being told what she shouldn't. This truth occurs rarely, when she trusts a man enough to hold the space without reaching for control or answers. When he doesn't push or pull. When his presence says, "I see you," louder than any words could. That's when the mask slips. That's when her eyes stay a second longer than they should. When she finally exhales like she's been holding her breath for years. Because she's not looking for someone to rescue her, only someone strong enough to stay when she stops pretending she doesn't need anyone. At that moment, she realized what had attracted her was never the words, but the quiet energy she could not ignore. She doesn't need another man trying to impress her with loud gestures or practiced charm. She's heard the lines, seen the bravado, and felt the weight of men trying too hard to prove their worth. What she's drawn to isn't noise, it's presence. It's the man who doesn't need to announce his value because it already speaks for him the moment he walks into the room. His energy is still, but it's not passive. It's calm yet commanding. That's what draws her closer without her even realizing it. There's a kind of masculine energy that doesn't push or persuade. It leads quietly and creates space for her to soften. She doesn't want to be in control all the time. She doesn't want more decisions or another person to ask her what to do next. She wants to feel something she rarely feels. Safe enough to let go. Not because she's weak, but because she's tired of being strong for everyone else. She relaxes when your energy says, "I've got this," without saying it aloud. She exhales. That sigh isn't just relief, it's trust. Trust allows her to shift from survival mode into something softer, more connected, and more free. This is the power of silent dominance. It doesn't compete for attention because it already holds gravity. It doesn't need to be explained because it's felt. Polarity is what makes this work. When a man anchors into his grounded masculine, the feminine naturally leans in. Not because she's forced, but because she wants to. It's not about control, it's about stability. And in a world that constantly asks women to take charge, plan and stay alert, there's something profoundly attractive about a man who knows how to hold steady. It's not about having status or strength on display. It's about knowing who you are and letting that quiet confidence shape the space around you. That kind of presence doesn't fade when the moment ends, it lingers. And it's what she remembers long after the words are gone. And that kind of presence, silent yet weighty, draws her in without an invitation. The man lets her come to him. He walked into the room without force or noise. No loud entrance, no forced smile, no eyes begging to be seen. And yet, somehow, everyone noticed. Not because he demanded attention, but because he didn't. That stillness in his presence drew people in more than any. She was the type of woman men usually lean toward. Beautiful in that unapproachable way that makes most try harder, speak louder, and laugh sooner. She had grown used to attention, and even more used to control. With most men, she could predict their next move, but not with him. He didn't chase. He listened. Compliments or questions didn't mark their first interaction. He watched her speak, and when she paused, he didn't rush to fill the silence. Instead, he waited. Then said, "You talk like you want to be interrupted." The room didn't quiet, but she did. Something in her shifted. Not because he was cold, but because he saw her without needing anything. For a moment, she wasn't performing, she was simply present. It wasn't the line that struck her, it was the clarity. Someone could see through the polish to the part of her that craved to be met with calm certainty. That night, she didn't want flattery or approval. She wanted to lose control, but only in the presence of someone who wouldn't. She kept watching him long after their conversation ended. He didn't circle back, he didn't press, and that made her lean in. A man who isn't trying to win attention becomes the one she wants it from most. The paradox of attraction played out in real time. Her usual patterns didn't apply, and that unfamiliarity stirred something more profound than desire. It stirred longing. What most men don't realize is that presence without performance is rare. Standing firm in yourself without seeking validation invites her into a different kind of dance, one where she reaches not because you pulled, but because you remained still. And in that stillness, she doesn't feel dismissed. She feels seen. Sometimes the most decisive move a man can make is none. In those moments of doing nothing, the silent art began to speak and awaken her imagination. Attraction doesn't begin with words. It starts in the pause before them, in how you carry yourself before you've said a thing. Most men try to impress by doing more, talking, gestures and movement. But the truth is that what draws a woman in is often the opposite. It's stillness, it's intention, it's restraint. When your eye contact holds steady without chasing, without needing to look away first, you send a signal most men never manage to give. You're not seeking approval, you're offering presence. A man who can stay grounded in the discomfort of silence communicates more than 1,000 compliments ever could. Women notice this. They feel it immediately, even if they can't name it. Your voice matters just as much. Not just the words, but the rhythm. A slow voice signals calm control. A well-placed pause between sentences invites her curiosity to lean in. Silence isn't a gap to fill, it's a tool. Let it stretch just enough to create tension. Most men rush to close the space, but the space is where imagination lives. That's where desire begins to form. Then there's touch. Brief, deliberate, and unpredictable. A brush of the hand, then a step back. A moment of closeness followed by distance. You don't linger too long. You don't seek permission. You guide, and then you disappear. This pattern tells her you're in control of the moment, and more importantly, in control of yourself. Stillness is the foundation beneath it all. When you're still, relaxed, unbothered by her reactions or the outcome, you show her something rare. A man who doesn't need to win her over to feel valuable. That kind of presence awakens something deeper. It gives her space to feel feminine, watched without being chased, and wonder what you're thinking without needing to say it. Mystery isn't about hiding, it's about not giving away everything at once. And when a man can hold his frame while letting her imagination fill the space between words, glances, and gestures, he doesn't just trigger attraction, he awakens fantasy. And once that switch is flipped, it's hard for her to forget how it felt. When she feels safe without being analyzed, she feels seen without being decoded. Something else begins to happen. She won't show up empty. Most women who've lived through disappointment don't. She'll carry a script, crafted over time with sarcasm that keeps things light, jokes that divert attention, and just enough control never to feel vulnerable. It's her defense, and she wears it well. Many men fall for the show, laughing on cue, agreeing when they're meant to nod, playing the role she's written for them without even realizing it. But if you want to reach her, you can't play along. You have to cut through. Say what no one else dares to. Look past the charm and say something that shakes the ground she's been walking on. Not to provoke, but to reveal. A quiet line like, "You hide behind being in control. I wonder who you are when you're not," lands differently. It doesn't insult, it invites. It bypasses her defenses and speaks to the part of her tired of performing. That moment of truth disarms her mind and awakens something more profound than attraction. It stirs curiosity, and in that pause between her reaction and reply, something rare happens. She feels seen. She's not used to it. Most men chase the version of her she shows on the surface. They laugh at the clever lines, admire her independence, and maybe try to challenge her just enough to keep the conversation lively. But a few pauses are long enough to wonder who she is underneath it all. Fewer still have the presence to hold what they find without needing to fix or fear it. When you refuse to dance around the mask, when you gently speak into the part she hides, you give her an unfamiliar kind of safety, the safety of being known, and in that space, where she no longer has to lead the script, you become something more than a man she talks to. You become the one who doesn't flinch when she's real. There's a truth most women won't say out loud. I want someone who sees me before I'm ready to be seen. When you meet her there and speak about what she shows but what she guards, you offer her something rare. Not control, not comfort, clarity. And it's at that moment she realizes she's finally met someone who doesn't just fit into her fantasy, but quietly holds it without breaking her. That clarity gave way to a deeper experience, a feeling she could not confuse or easily forget. There's a kind of energy most women never encounter. It isn't loud, doesn't demand attention, and doesn't rely on performance. But when she feels it, something shifts inside her that she can't easily explain or ignore. It's not about looks or status or charm. It's about presence. A grounded masculine presence that makes her feel safe without being controlled, and seen without being judged. When a woman meets a man with that rare calm, she doesn't chase him for validation. She isn't looking for reassurance or trying to win his approval. What she's pursuing is the feeling she had in his presence, how her defenses quietly dropped, her overthinking paused, and how she felt like she could finally rest without being on guard. That kind of surrender is rare, and once awakened, it becomes unforgettable. She might try to recreate it elsewhere, but it won't feel the same, because this isn't about what he did, it's about who he was. He has certainty in himself, lacks the need to impress, and can hold space without rushing to fill silence. These things aren't techniques, they're not scripted, they're felt. And she feels them deeply, even if she doesn't have the words to describe them. The paradox is this: the more grounded he is in himself, the more she feels drawn in, not because he's chasing her, but because he isn't. His energy says, I don't need anything from you, but I'm not afraid to be with you. That balance pulls her in and keeps her thinking about him long after the moment passes. Many men try to become what they think women want. But when you stop performing and start being fully present in who you are, you naturally become magnetic. You don't need to fix yourself, you need to trust yourself. That's what stirs something inside her that logic can't touch. She's not obsessing over a man, she's obsessing over a feeling she thought she'd never experience. And that feeling came from you being exactly who you are. You've just stepped into a space most men never even know exists. A hidden corner of the female mind where logic fades and instinct takes over. This isn't about domination or games. It's about presence. It's about the rare man who doesn't flinch, doesn't chase, and doesn't ask for permission. A man whose energy speaks louder than words. This deep, unspoken fantasy isn't something she'll admit, not to her friends or herself. But when she meets a man who moves with certainty, holds eye contact without apology, and speaks few but powerful words, something in her response, she lets go. Not because she has to, but because she feels safe enough to act. This is not for the man who needs constant validation. It's for the man who stands firm, leads with calm authority, and doesn't perform for attention. She doesn't choose to be drawn to you when you carry yourself like this. She simply is. And once she experiences that depth of surrender, she'll remember you not for what you said, but for how she felt in your presence. Now, I'd love to hear your perspective. Have you ever noticed this silent response from a woman? Have you ever embodied this kind of presence? Share your experiences and thoughts in the comments below. And if this video offered new insight, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more conversations on psychology, masculinity, and the hidden dynamics of attraction. See you in the next one.